Hello, I'm Pamela Davis. Welcome to episode 74 of the Well Done Life podcast. Hello, and welcome back to episode 74 of the Well Done Life podcast. I'm your host, Pamela Davis. If you're new here, hey, welcome. I'm so glad that you made it. I hope you stay a while. If you've been here before, thank you so much for continuing to rock with me. You guys know I love you deep, and I couldn't do this without you. So thank you so much for continuing to support me on the journey. I'm really excited about us learning and growing together. So before we kind of get into this week's episode, I always like to make sure that I started off with a couple of housekeeping things, as I like to call them, because I feel like we're building a house. I feel like this is about creating a safe space, and we have to make sure that when we create that safe space, we have the foundation, and the foundation is built on two things. It's built on clarity, and it's built on love. So like I mentioned, this is a safe space. This is a safe space for women. This is a space where women can come together, we can share our stories, and we can learn and grow from each other. Because I started the Well Done Life because I really do believe that women are the foundation of society. And I also feel that when we learn and grow from each other, when we connect through conversation and our shared experiences, we find out that there are a lot more similarities between us than differences. And it also empowers us to be able to feed into each other so that we can help each other grow and learn. Because there's no experts at this thing called life. Literally, it's just us. And so we need to make sure that we have spaces where we can really let it all out and learn and grow and share together. So that's what this is all about. So we got clarity. So then that leads me right into the next very important phase of building this foundation, this safe space, this house. It's love. I really love to always make sure that I start off with love. I love to love. And with that, that means that I want to make sure that I send each of you prayers this week of peace, prayers of health, prayers of prosperity, prayers of hope, prayers of strength. I mean, it is crazy out here. I cannot even say it enough. Delta is still moving quickly, and y'all know I'm not talking about the airlines. And I just want to make sure that everyone is just protecting themselves. There's always so much that is being thrown at us, and we're going to talk a little bit about that a little later on, but please make sure that you are doing whatever you need to do to protect yourself. I mean, we are still in the panini. And even though I joke around and call it panini and panorama, this is a global pandemic and we got to take it seriously. And you can still have a great life while also being safe. Just make sure that you are thinking about that, because we're at this point now where we all kind of have to realize it's not about us anymore. What we do is actually impacting the person in our family, but then even the people that we interact with on a daily basis. We just kind of have to really be thoughtful. And I always feel like we need more thoughtfulness in the world, more empathy in the world. So I'm just saying, be careful. I think it's going to take all of us personally to be really diligent to calm Delta down. So prayer, and also I want to make sure that I go back to this because I know here where I am, I'm in Orlando and in Florida, the COVID cases are rising very quickly. And so I know the two major hospitals here in Orlando, they are at like code red level status with the amount of people that they've seen, unfortunately, be admitted due to COVID. So prayers and love to all the frontline workers out there. Prayers and love to all the people whose families are impacted by this. I mean, we just all have to be cognizant of what's really going on. So prayers and love to all of them. And we appreciate your sacrifice, because we didn't have doctors or nurses out there sacrificing their health, their life in some instances, to help take care of people, we would truly be in chaos. So definitely prayers and love to them and all the people on the front line. I'm glad to see a lot of businesses now are going back to at least requiring their employees to wear a mask. Personally, I still wear a mask, and yes, I've talked about it before. I am vaccinated. My entire family is. But we wear masks inside. I just don't feel comfortable, even as a vaccinated person, because I know from science I can still potentially get sick. And I don't want to infect anyone. I don't want to be infected personally. I'm just trying to avoid that as much as I can. So again, not trying to soapbox anyone in, because I don't think that works either, and definitely not trying to guilt anyone into it. I think it's just about common sense and thinking about other people around you and kind of letting that to be your guide. So that's kind of my point on that. So it's Friday night. It's July 29th. I'm assuming it's still July 29th. I don't know. I'm never good with these dates. See, July 30th. I knew it was a Friday. I always know when it's the day, Friday at least. It's like my favorite day of the week. And it is approximately 8:47 p.m. It's been a busy week, but a good week. I hope it's been a busy and a good week for you guys as well. I'm feeling good, and I hope you're feeling good. But I'm really glad it's the weekend. It's time for spending time with my family. I'm going to get some more flowers this week. Tomorrow, I'm really excited. And remember, I kind of, just to preface that, because I'm sure that just was like, okay, how did all of a sudden we get to that? I like to buy myself flowers every 2 weeks. I buy them every 2 weeks from Trader Joe's, and it makes me really excited because, I'm trying to create an atmosphere that allows me to love my life on all levels. It's all about the small things that you can do to romanticize your life. And I talked about romanticizing your life in last week's episode, and I will definitely make sure I link it in the show notes, but it's something that I recently discovered, and I'm really looking at how I can incorporate that more into my life, especially since I'm not doing as much as I used to, in regards to travel and other things. So I want to make sure that I just become extremely more focused on taking advantage of all the little things in my life and being grateful for them. Because there's just so many little things that we have that we should take more advantage of and be grateful for, and they can bring us happiness. So like I said, I talked a lot about it last week, and I definitely will include that in the show notes. So maybe there's some things that you can incorporate into your life, because I personally feel that sharing is caring. And I want to make sure that we are all living our best possible lives, because I think we need to make time for that. Just like, we need to make time for it. It really, actually, if I think about it, it should be a part of our self-care, that we are romanticizing our life, that we are making time for the little things that bring us joy. Because when you are doing those things, it helps contribute overall to your health and your happiness. And it's not just about physical health. Mental health is very important, as we are seeing now. And there's so much conversation, I feel like, around other people's mental health or different aspects of themselves, that I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit today. And this might be, I think, a different approach to it. I don't know, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway. Because I really feel like lately there's just a lot of conversation around women's mental health. We've recently seen a lot of conversation about Naomi Osaka in regards to her pulling out with her mental health, as well as we also recently had Simone Biles pulling out of the Olympics with her mental health challenges. Again, so many folks. I even think about with Sha'Carri Richardson. Yes, she was smoking marijuana that caused her to get disqualified, but her mother had just died. So again, there's just a lot of challenges. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we're in the middle of a panini. This panini is not that it's not stopping right now. Like, we all kind of thought, I think, that, we were going to be free for a while. We were on the right path, and now we're right back to ground zero in a lot of instances. And it's tough, and it really creates a lot of stress. While at the same time, if you're a mom, you've got kids getting ready to go back to school for the fall, and you're working and trying to have a life, and it's a lot of pressure. And as women, we tend to always take those things in, the feedback, the criticism, and try to smooth through it gracefully, because, that's what we have been taught to do. That's what we have been expected to do. But I feel like sometimes, you have to take a pause, and sometimes you have to make time for some folks. And when I say make time, I don't mean like making time to engage with people who love or support you, because there are always going to be people who love and support and encourage you. I'm talking, and hopefully that's natural. We should always expect that. But I'm talking about clearing out some space to let some people know that they have you all the way messed up. And that's really not actually what I wanted to say. I really want to say that you have to let some folks know that they have you all the way fucked up. Because, so there, I said it, I feel good about it. See, I was just trying to be polite, but that's part of the problem. Like, some of us are always trying to be polite. Like I said, we're just trying to glide through, trying to keep things going because we want to keep everyone happy as women. But I feel that when we do that a lot of times, we are allowing folks to take our kindness for weakness. And I think sometimes, they take our silence, that collective demeanor, as a sign that they can freely question, a woman's life, a woman's body, our health, and especially our mental health, our time, our decisions, And to me, when that happens, I think that you sometimes need to occasionally make time for people. So I want to talk about today how we need to make time for people and how you have to prioritize that in, because I think people, like I said, they have you all the way fucked up and they forget, because you're so intentional, you're burning the sage and all of these different things, that you are still a human being. And at the same time, you will allow people to only go so far in how they treat you before sometimes you have to push back and let them know, I've got time today, so let me make time for you, because obviously you're begging for attention, and let me give you exactly what you're looking for. And you know what? I have time today, so let's talk about it. So before we dive into this too far, I just want to make sure that everyone knows that this, like I said, is going to stay very clearly within the foundation that we started. Because I know, she put a little, I'm sure a few of you are thinking, oh my gosh, she put a cuss word in here. What's going on? I'm used to the sage and the intentional, but I'm real. And that's part of living the well done life. I'm a human being, and I have had people in my life who have gotten me kind of fucked up, because you think this niceness, it will lead you into another perception of me. But at the same time, I've learned as you get older, as you move through this life, you have to be able to balance out. And sometimes you have to make time for people, and you have to be comfortable with being able to make time. But when you're making time for people, like I said, you want to make sure that this is rooted in what we started in. This is rooted in clarity and love, because those two things are going to be key to everything you do. And especially when you're making time for people, because we're all extremely busy. And I've listed litany of things that we are all overwhelmed with. And as I mentioned, as women, we are the foundation of society. So that means we're even more. We're booked and busy. We don't have time to be wasting time on people, but that still doesn't mean that you should not make time, because when you do make time, with you being booked and busy, that means we need to make sure that there will be no questions after I make time for you. And to me, when you do this, because when you make time clearly, they won't even think to come back to you again and make this assumption, because that you're letting people know that when we make time, it's a problem. And yes, making time for people is that powerful. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about making time. And when you make time for someone, there's a lot of different colloquial definitions for making time. But essentially, just keeping it real simple. There's no need to even go to a dictionary. It is, I am at my point where I obviously now need to give you the attention that you have been bucking for with your criticisms, with your passive aggressiveness, with your microaggressions, whatever it shall be. And I am now going to deem myself available, or pencil out some time in my mind where I can sit here and let you know the misguided approach that you are taking and how I'm going to steer you back to the path of righteousness. So that's essentially what making time is. And I'll try to sum that up in the show notes. But again, I really probably shouldn't have to, because making time should be pretty clear. It essentially is, yes, I'm booked and busy, but you have gotten on that last nerve that I've got so much that, you know what, let me give you what you're asking for. Let me carve out a little time and give you the attention that you deserve. So now that we have established exactly what making time is, let's really even take it a step further. Let's dive into why and when, or actually, let's delve into why you need to make time. Because like I said earlier, people in some instances, when you need to make time for them, they are taking your kindness for a weakness. I know for myself, I'm at a point in my life where I have made the decision that I am not arguing with anyone. Literally, I even say it at home when I'm dealing with like my mom or my sister, when we might get into little disagreements. I will let them know very clearly, I am not arguing with you. Like, it's either this is the point that I want to make, and you're either going to do what I need you to do, or I need you to clearly give me a reason why my perception should change. But going back and forth, a lot of extra dialogue, I'm not doing. Because personally, I feel like as a woman, I'm at that point where I need to preserve my energy. And I need to preserve the good moisture in my skin. And so with that, preserving the moisture in my skin, that means that I will not raise my voice at any way. I even try to apply that into my work settings as well. Because like I've mentioned before, I have a corporate job during the day. So I have made it a vow that I am not going to go back and forth with anybody, because I'm not wasting my time, I'm not wasting my energy, and I'm definitely not wasting my moisture. And I'm very confident in the decisions that I'm making, that is such that I feel like I should not have to do that. But if you do challenge back, then I feel like I have to do it, because if I don't, I am then allowing you to have a perception of me that is not factual. And that's why I feel like you have to make time for people sometimes, because you see, people will have perceptions of you based upon obviously surface interactions. And when I say surface interactions, we all know what that is. I mean, when we are working with people, when we are interacting with people, we know that we are able to turn on and turn off how we approach certain situations or certain people. And you give them the sides of yourself that you feel like they need to see in order to get the job done. That's just human nature. But at the same time, sometimes there can become an unspoken comfort or unagreed to comfort on the part of some people when they approach you. And a lot of times that will manifest itself into slick words or passive aggressive tendencies, like I mentioned, microaggressions. And you know that this person is trying you. You do. Or they're being and when they're trying you, it's not even an or, when they're trying you, they're being disrespectful. And you know what disrespect feels like. If you have to question someone's intention of how they are dealing with you, then that's a problem. And so in some instances, that means that you have to make time for someone, because it even stems even further back of a reason why you would want to make time. It goes really back to the core of the Four Agreements. And I always bring up the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. So if you're new to the podcast, it is one of my favorite books. It changed my life, and I would recommend it to anyone to read. But the Four Agreements essentially are just four basic principles to living your best life. And one of the Four Agreements is not to make assumptions. Because you see, when you are in a situation with someone where you have to make time for them, where you need to clear them out about an issue, you have to do it because you don't want to make the assumption of what this person is saying. You want to make sure that you are clear so that you can understand where they're coming from, and that will prevent you from also going into the next one. One of the other Four Agreements is not to take anything personally. And then that leads back to one of my other favorite agreements, is being impeccable with your word. Because when you're being impeccable with your word, that is being positive when you speak the word over yourself and other people. And so that gives you the vehicle to be able to have conversations with people where it's not, I'm just cussing you out because that's where I'm at, that, I'm making time, I'm pissed off. I'm giving you a vehicle of being able to say what you clearly are feeling in this situation, how this person's actions or words are affecting you, and why you had to address it to make sure that there are no misunderstandings moving forward. So essentially, you have to make time for people. No matter how much you might not want to do it, you must. So because of the fact that if you don't, that can lead to resentments within you that will affect you, that can impact your mental health, that can impact your good skin, your youth, your sleep, your rest. And no one should have that much power over you, and because you are in control of who you are as a person. So that's why you have to do it. And when you do it, like I said, it doesn't have to be, I'm cussing you out, even though in some instances, maybe a good cuss word or two might be appropriate, because sometimes you have to jar people into understanding specifically what you're trying to communicate. But I'll be honest, I don't necessarily feel for myself I really have to curse at people in order to get my point across. I've really come to the point where I feel like I can clearly articulate it in a way where you will understand that I am upset, but I am being very specific about what I will not accept from you, why you must never do that again, and how I expect us to be able to move forward. I mean, you have to lay it out. That's why I said you have to make time, because when you're making time for somebody, I mean, you are not, just like I said, you're not coming at them with a cuss. You're coming at them with clear, actionable points as to why this situation has gotten to this point, what you need to have happen to move forward, and how you expect to move forward going on. And I think as women, a lot of times we have a problem with that. And that's why we have people so readily willing to pass judgment and assessments on other people. And when they feel like you're not going to do anything because you handle everything with grace. I'm totally of the school where you do handle everything with grace. But at the same time, bad girls move in silence and violence. You might be able to catch me where I can take it for a minute, but there will come a day where I will say, hey, we need to talk about it. And I just keep a little check until I get to a point where it's like, look, we need to have a conversation and we need to address it. So I feel like the why is, and that's why I wanted to kind of go through it, because the why is so important. And so now you understand the importance of it. Let's talk about how you go about it. So as I mentioned before, it really, to me, should be rooted in clarity and love. And it really does tie very easily, like I mentioned also, into the 4 agreements. And I don't think it has to become a big ta-da, not unless you allow it to be a big ta-da. To me, it really it can happen calmly, because remember, you control the narrative. It really is all about you. And I think sometimes it's very important in situations where you are feeling like you need to make time, where you don't instantly react. To me, that would be the first thing I would say as to how to go about it. Don't instantly react. And I know a lot of people have the perception, you got to get people now when you're in the moment. You got to make sure that they understand right then, right now. But you have to ask yourself also, in that moment, are you clearly able to express yourself the way that you want to? Or are you running off of pure emotion? Because again, remember, it's all about you being in control. So you have to make sure that you are giving yourself the space and the time to prioritize specifically what you need to occur from this situation. Because again, remember, it relates to the fact that this is about making time. You are carving out time out of your precious life to be able to address this negativity. So you need to make sure that you are extremely proactive in how you manage that time. So that's why I say sometimes I feel like it's better to check yourself instantly and say, am I ready to move forward? If you're ready to move forward and have the conversation, great. We'll talk about that in a moment. If you're not ready to move forward and not have that conversation, that's great too, because you know that you need to take a moment to breathe and you need to focus. take as much time as you need. Personally, my suggestion would be don't let it go too long, because of the fact that, to what everyone always says, you have to make sure that people understand right then in that moment. I don't think they have to understand right then in that moment. I think that you can pick an opportune time when it is convenient for you. I would always say, even if best, sleep on it before you go forward, or at least give it a couple of hours so that you can make sure that your emotions are calm. And there's no time frame as to when it goes, but I would say don't let it go too long where you allow your feelings to dissipate to the point where you're like, well, I'm just going to go ahead and let it slide. Because that's the problem with not addressing things sometimes in a ready fashion. Because as women, or as people in general, you calm down. And then it's like, do I really want to address it? And you're like, and then 9 times out of 10, you're going to say no. And you're going to keep going. And unfortunately, that situation is going to come back again, because that person doesn't understand where they went wrong. They think everything is cool, but it's not. So you need to make sure that you prioritize not taking too long. And I know that sounds so vague, but I can't really give you a guideline for that. For myself, I can go a while, especially if it's someone that I really care about, but I try not to do that anymore because of the fact that I have done that in other situations. And unfortunately, it just built up. And again, it was those type of aggressions really turn into resentments if they're not fully addressed long term, and they can cost you a relationship down the line. So that's why I said sometimes you have to make time for people when it's convenient, but don't take too long. And so I try not personally to take too long. I don't really, in that time frame, again, I can't really give you a specific time frame, but you know what I'm saying. You do. Because each of us knows our limits and where we are and how much time we are willing to give sometimes some crazy conversations and situations. Don't give it that much time. So you checked yourself. But let's say, going back, you've decided, I'm ready to go ahead and deal with the situation. Great. Okay, then let's move forward in that regard. And that would lead me right into number 2, which would be, I would recommend writing down or getting clear about specifically what you want to address. Because again, you have to be cautious in the sense, are you firing off of emotion or are you firing off of facts? And I think especially if someone is being disrespectful to you, you should be able to clearly articulate exactly what it was that you were upset about, what bothered you. And that person deserves to hear specifically what it was back so that they can try to understand where you're coming from. And that will help you make sure that you have clarity about the conversation. And again, it keeps you in control of the narrative, because again, you don't want to put yourself in that position where you're firing off of emotion. You're not clearly articulating what the problem was, and you're not really resolving anything. You're just wasting emotion, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to come out all guns blazing. That person's going to get offended. They're going to come out all guns blazing, and it turns into a long argument instead of a short discussion. So be very specific about what you want to address. I would write it down. And I know a lot of people are like, well, how do you write down something in an argument? Again, you're not approaching this like an argument. You're approaching this like a conversation. You're making time. When you make time for something, just like when you make time to go get your nails done, just like when you make time to get a massage, it's planned out, it's organized. You know exactly when you're going, how long you're going to be there, what you want to accomplish. You should approach those situations when you are making time for people with that same type of methodology. So that's why I would say that you would want to have some thoughts written out, because again, you want to be very specific with people. You owe it to that person to give them specific examples so that they can learn and grow. And at the same time, you owe it to yourself to make sure you get out your specific thoughts so you can make sure that the points that you need to be addressed are addressed. And that way because again, like I told you, this is about making sure that you have clarity. So once you have clarity, you've written it out, And now you want to have your conversation. The key to that is staying calm and making sure that this is coming from a place of love. And with that, that means that you are impeccable with your word. It really is not about trying to cuss somebody out or disrespect them. It literally is about using your words in a positive way and explaining to this person how they hurt you and making sure that you have your emotions in check enough so that you are able to lead with that. Now, I always like to preface this by saying just because you're leading with love doesn't mean that you're going to receive love on the other side. It doesn't. But you have to then always look at the fact that going back to the 4 agreements, I'm telling y'all, those 4 agreements can probably change this entire world if everybody could get on board. You don't want to make the assumption that this person is coming at you from a place of anger. You want to I would even probably think of saying that's a reflection of how that person responds to feedback. That's about them. That's not about you. You know that you have processed your emotion and you're just trying to get clarity because you want to move forward. If this person is caught up in emotion, the best thing to me that you can do in situations like that is not say anything. Because the moment that you come back at that person, all it turns into is an argument. And again, the core crust of why you made this time is lost in translation because you're back here arguing. So sometimes I know for myself, I actually will just sit there and just let somebody get it out. You let them say whatever they have to say. One, because a rational person and an irrational person can't get anywhere. So you need that person to move through what they were saying so that you can go back to clarity. 2, the truth comes out in those circumstances. Because a lot of times when people get defensive and start justifying feedback that they're given, and then they start arguing with you back, you wind up hearing the trueness of their heart. And you will really get to understand what the crust of the situation is really about. And because people just can't help it. You're naturally going to tell on yourself, especially when you're arguing. There's an old saying, a hit dog will holler. Really, if that person was not guilty of what you had brought to their attention, they wouldn't have a reaction. There's nothing to react about if it doesn't impact you. But if it does impact you and then you have to start reacting and start acting all out of sorts about it, then you know that person is wrong. They know they're wrong and they're now on the defensive because this isn't about naturally. Like I said, you're not coming at this guns blazing. You're making time. You're calm. You're cool, collected. You're just letting somebody know what's going on so that you can move forward. Then you just sit back and let them just give you all the answers. And once you get those answers and you're hearing all of this, you have to be prepared to hear what you're going to hear. Because a lot of times when we make time for people or we have discussions with people, we are expecting a certain outcome. Again, going back to the 4 agreements, you can't make assumptions in any situation. Just because you feel one way doesn't mean that that person is going to receive it in that same way. So you have to be willing to listen with true ears to hear what this person is saying, process it, whether it hurts you or not, and keep going. Because, like I said, that person's going to give you the trueness of themselves. And we have to be open as women to being able to receive the trueness so that we can then make decisions on how we want to move forward. In a lot of instances, I hate to tell you, you're in situations where you have to evaluate whether or not this person's opinion really has the impact on your life that you thought that it did. And then 2, is this person just dealing from a place of hurt? And is this something that you can move forward from because there's a larger issue at play that maybe you guys need to fix? So you just really have to, again, you're allowing yourself to keep in control and see the trueness of people. And then you are able to really, truly decide how to move forward. But you got to be prepared to hear it. And that's also a major part of being able to have these type of discussions with people. If you're not willing to hear someone's hurt, someone's anger, someone's frustration, then I would say, this might not even apply to you. But I think most of us as women at this age and this point of our lives, that's what we're looking for. We're always saying we want the truth and the honesty of people. We have to be willing to receive it, and to receive it with an open mind and an open heart, and listen, not allow our emotions to overrun the conversation. So like I said, now you're at this point, you've heard it, you've listened. Then you have to be willing to go back and decide how you want to respond. Are you ready to respond right at that particular moment in time? Or do you need to process? I mean, there's no shame in walking away from a situation when you feel like it's going nowhere, and picking up the conversation at a later point. I think that probably is a key thing in marriage. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've never been married, but I don't really feel like people just I hope people just don't spend hours upon hours arguing about the same thing and you're not going anywhere. I hope that couples are healthy enough to say, this isn't going anywhere right now. We need to take a break. And we just both need to step away from this discussion, and we'll come back to it. And I would hope that even in friendships that we are doing those same things, because, you don't want to just cut people off just to cut people off. But at the same time, you want to be able to, and you want to be able to have healthy relationships. So you have to be willing to sometimes put necessary space in things in order for that to move forward. And it doesn't mean that you're not invested. It doesn't mean that you don't care. It doesn't mean that you're not getting respected. It just means you're putting space into it until you can come back to it with a level head. But let's say there is no need for space. You guys are able to talk and you have a clear relationship, have a clear conversation, and you're able to get an understanding about what happened. And you are then able to lay out what your expectations are moving forward. And you go on. Once you lay out your expectations of what's moving forward, you have to hold that person accountable. And you have to sometimes, to me, parrot back to that person, or have them parrot back to you what you said, so that they can acknowledge that they heard you and received you. Because, again, you don't want to just talk to talk. None of us have time for that. Again, we are making time just for this conversation. So you want to make sure that you get your point across, and that person receives it and understands. There's nothing wrong with asking a person, do you understand? Do you have any questions? You want to talk about it a little further? Okay, then, whatever. But make sure that you get that understanding, that reciprocal thought, like, yes, I heard you, I receive it, I'm moving on. And then once you get that, you have to then move to a place where you move on. And, sometimes as women, that can be a little challenging. And I don't even think that's just women. I think that's just people in general. Some of us hold a grudge and we just cannot move on from things. And it doesn't mean that you are forgetting what happened. It's just that you are making the conscious decision to say, you know what, I'm not going to allow this to hold our relationship back forever. I'm moving on from it. And when you move on from it, you have to let that person move on. You have to be willing to understand that moment occurred, but that's not indicative of every moment that you're going to have. And those are situations that we have sometimes in relationships with men and women, or whatever in general. We have to stop holding people prisoner to the things that they did in the past. And you have to forgive them and move on from it. So you have to be willing to do that. And if you're not able to move on from it, and you're not willing to do that, to me, that means, okay, you're holding a grudge. Why are you holding a grudge? What hurt is still inside of you that you have not released? And what can you do to make sure that you are able to release that hurt? Because when we hold on to hurts, it's not necessarily about the person that we are angry about. It's about something within inside of us that won't allow us to move past this pain. And why is that? And we should be questioning those moments, because holding on to things only weighs us down. It doesn't weigh the other person down. It only weighs us down. So we have to be willing to search ourselves and fix those areas of ourselves, even if that means going to therapy, to make sure that we are not holding on to weights and then trying to pass those weights on to someone else, because all you're doing is dragging down relationships, and it makes making time for people totally irrelevant, because there's nothing that that person could have said or done that would have made you happy or wouldn't have hurt you, because you're holding on to a weight. So essentially, make sure that you're searching yourself, making sure that your heart is clear, making sure that your soul is clear and your trauma is moved out, so that you can be clear and receptive in situations and in conversations of this nature, and so that you can move forward and have relationships with people. Because, like I said, making time for people is necessary. And I think especially for women, we have to get a lot more clear about what we expect of people in our lives and how we want to be treated. And we should hold people accountable for that. So that's why it is very important at times that we make time for people when they are disrespecting our space, disrespecting our person, because we cannot always be the nice, polite person that people see and never not demand respect. Respect is given, but respect is earned as well. You have to demand it. You have to earn it. You have to fight for it. And you have to make sure that you are always clear about what you want and set those. Those are part of setting boundaries. Set those boundaries and hold people accountable to them, because that's going to be key as you're trying to move through this world and live your best life. And not everyone's going to like that. They're not. Because, some people feel entitled to be able to speak on our lives and how we do things and how we look and the decisions we make. And that is really in a reflection of those other people, because they obviously have things within themselves which makes them pick up things in other people to try to hold them accountable to, but then they're not holding themselves accountable. And like I mentioned earlier, with even in the case, like I think of with Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles and Sha'Carri Richardson, people felt so comfortable making judgments based upon these people's lives. And I'm just like, when did we all get this amount of time that we should be taking it upon ourselves to pick other people's decisions apart? Mental health is not up for debate, because how can you debate somebody else's mental health? You're not living their life. You don't know what they go through every day. And so making those judgments about someone else is a reflection of who they are ultimately as people, making those judgments, because all they're doing is trying to channel their hurt, their anger, their frustration on these people who are in enough control of themselves to know that they are not at their best and they need to make decisions on their life that don't coincide with the norm. And I think more women need to have those kind of places. And they're handling it with style and grace, and definitely not making time for anybody yet that we know of. But, maybe here and there you'll see a quick Twitter clapback or something like that where they made time for somebody who just took it too far. But we have to feel confident in who we are and being able to control our emotions and our thoughts and our perceptions of life, of our bodies, of our decisions. And that means that sometimes, you'll have to make time for a few people, because a few people will take it too far and need to be put back in their place. But the people who really are supposed to be in your corner, the people who will love you and support you, they will fully understand the path that you are on, and they will support you 100%. But it's not about that either. It's not. Even though that always makes everyone feel good. Believe me, we always feel great when people support and love our decisions. That's still not about it. It's about you. It's about you loving and supporting your own decisions and demanding the life that you want, and not asking for permission for it, but writing it and living it and holding people accountable to the expectations that you have set. Because again, this is your life to live, and everybody's not on your journey, and that's okay. As long as you're on the journey, as long as you're engaged, as long as you feel valued, that's all that matters. That's why you should have no hesitation in making time for someone who doesn't understand your journey, but has taken it upon themselves to try to dictate what that journey looks like. They have their own life to live. Focus on that and let them let you live. And we have to normalize those type of interactions. And like I said, it's not about trying to tear people apart, because I don't necessarily think you got to cuss somebody out. But like I said, if you do a good cuss word every once in a while, it'll jolt them and bring them right where you need them to be. But that's not a requirement. It really isn't. It's not even a requirement of you to respond. It's a requirement of you to own it. It's a requirement to know that if you do need to respond, that you know exactly how to come back, how to make sure that your boundaries are set so that people understand who they're dealing with and why they will never make this mistake again. And don't get me wrong, you'll have some people who will constantly make those mistakes and question your decisions in your life. And if that's the case, I would definitely suggest that you reevaluate the role that some of these people are playing in your life. Because it's not saying that everybody that you should be around should agree with you. But if you have people who are consistently questioning who you are, what you are, how you do things, what have you, you have to then turn the mirror back and ask yourself, is this person really adding value to my life? And why are they so preoccupied with how I'm living? And should they really have that much access to me? Because it's not saying that they're a hater. It just may mean that they have issues within their own life that they need to focus on, that they are somehow projecting on you by taking and analyzing how you're doing your life, and they need to be prioritizing how to fix their own life. So maybe you need to give them some time so that they can figure out what they need to do while you go off and do what you need to do. And that's not like cutting people off, but that's just making selective pruning because sometimes you got to selectively prune. And sometimes it just naturally happens because people can't stand to see the levels that you go to. People can't stand to see the boundaries that you set. And hey, you know what? Fuck them. Literally, if they can't. But as long as you know what you're trying to do, you got to keep going. You got to keep moving. You've got to keep setting those boundaries. And you may need to make time for them. So I hope that I gave you some insight into it. Like I said, I wanted to talk about it really because of, like I was mentioning, between all of the media lately, the coverage around Naomi Osaka's mental health and Simone Biles. And I mean, some of the things, and Sha'Carri Richardson, the things that I have seen people say about these women, I'm just like, it's insanity to me. And the fact that, I heard someone today call Simone Biles a coward for stepping out of the Olympics. I'm just like, dude, she doesn't owe you anything. That woman made a decision about her life and based on her mental health, and that's her business, and you'll be all right. I don't see you trying to, tumble your butt across the thing on a pommel horse. So what are you worried about? But it's just amazing to me how a lot of people just, again, make it their business to speak on other people's lives like that. And how as women, we just swallow it and take it. And we have to stop doing that. And sometimes in situations, you have to make time for some folks. To me, he's one of those people, I wouldn't have made time for that because that's all he wants. He wants you to say something so that he can get some shine. But I'm talking about us, for some of us living these regular lives, regular blessed lives that we live. We need to make time for some people. We need to set the intention out there that no. You might be taking your relationship with me, your connection with me, your information on me a little too far. Let me correct you, give you some guidance on what you will not do, and let me just help you spend some time focusing on what you need to do. Focus on yourself, and let me focus on me, and let me live. So I definitely hope that inspired you to want to maybe look into making some time. Don't go out here cussing everybody out now. I'm not telling you that. I'm just telling you to stand in your power. You are one of the foundations of society. Don't let anyone tell you who you are or how you should live your life, because you are living this life. Nobody else is living it but you. So stand in your truth. And lead with love. Don't always, you don't have, it's not about having 500 walls up. It's not about cussing everybody out, but it's about standing in your truth enough that you are clear and that you are forceful with love and respect. And you're not making assumptions. You're just pointing out obvious facts and making corrections. That's what a boss does. That's what a queen does. That's what a woman of foundation, who is a foundation, part of the foundation of society does. Stand in who you are and be strong. And don't let anyone try to dissuade you from who you are supposed to be. So make time where it's necessary, but definitely keep doing everything that you are supposed to be doing. So I'll put some notes about this week's episode in the show notes. I definitely want to say thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the weekend. If you need to reach out to me, please don't hesitate to subscribe, or as well as you can also email me at thewelldonelife@gmail.com. You can follow me at the Well Done Life Podcast on Instagram, or you can follow me at my personal page at Pamela L. Davis on Instagram as well. I'll definitely be back next week. I look forward to talking to you guys. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Talk to you soon. Bye.